afternoon, student. This is Godfred Akulko Abanga, your BDT tutor. And I'm doing this together with my able colleagues, Avam Emmanuel and James Sakoka. And last week we presented a lesson to you about design process. And this week we want to continue. And to just take a quick summary of what you learned last week, we want you to remember the stages involved in design process. Before then, we said design process is a process where a designer has to go through from the time the problem is identified to the solution. All right, so we outlined the various stages involved in design process. And don't forget, you are the designer. Whatever problem you encounter, you need to be able to look for solutions to it. So you being the designer would have to go through the stages that we outlined last week. So we said the first stage is the situation. The situation basically is the environment within which the problem exists. And the environment could be talking about your home. And I know as you are in the house, there are certain problems that you can easily identify. Let's say you have gone to the village and your grandmother is sitting on a stool that is wobbling. That is a situation itself and needs a solution. Probably your dad or your mommy, when you pick up their clothes to wash, or you find a lot of money in the pockets, that is a situation by itself. It's a problem and needs a solution. So when it comes to situation, it is found in your environment. It could be your home, it could be in the church, it could be in the market, it could be anywhere where one is able to find a problem. And then apart from that, we also went to the next stage, which is the brief. We said design brief is where the designer would have to write a statement indicating how he or she is going to solve the problem. And then from there, we went to the analysis stage. We said this is where critical thinking is involved, reasoning is involved here. You have to, first of all, ask questions. Let me ask you something. Would you have a problem, decide to be mute about it, and expect to find solutions? No. Wherever there is a problem, first of all, you need to ask questions. So that is why under analysis, one has to ask a lot of questions. And the questions that you ask, you will then carry out an investigation and probably be able to find answers to these particular questions. And that is why we did told you that under analysis, you have to first of all also look at what the artifact you are going to make. This artifact covers a lot of factors. You will probably need materials to make that particular artifact. The function of the artifact you are going to make. Whoever is going to use it will fall under the ergonomics. The cost of even getting the materials falls under economics. And we said how you are going to construct the artifact falls under construction. And then how you even want this particular artifact to look like, the appearance is important. And that also, all these are the areas, the shape of the artifact. After you have made it, how do you want it to look like? And then how safe will it be for the user? So these are areas of, areas of analysis, factors that you need to rely on as you make the artifact. And then apart from the analysis stage, after you have asked the questions, you now move to the fourth stage. And that is what we are going to look at today. And that has to do with what we call investigation. So about investigation, it is a stage where the designer uses different methods to gather information in order to find a solution to an identified problem. So what we are saying is that when it comes to investigation, you, the designer, would have to then look for ways in which you would be able to find answers to the questions that you posed under the analysis stage. So when it comes to investigation, you have to first of all think about various methods or sources in which you'll be able to gather your information. So under investigation, we are going to look at two main things. First of all, we are going to look at methods of investigation, and then we'll also look at ways in which you would be able to store the data that you have collected. So first of all, let's look at the methods of investigation. We also call them sources of gathering information. One of them that we'll look at is what we call the interview. It is a method that involves face-to-face and verbal contact between the researcher. The researcher is you, the designer, or the interviewer, and the respondent, who is the interviewee. So at this stage, you would just have to move to somebody that you think will be relevant for you to find your information from, and then you conduct an interview with them. And then the other method that we could look at or talk about is observation. It is when the researcher draws conclusions based on how he or she has observed or looked at things similar to the identified problem. So everyone needs to be observant. So at home, normally we have kids who want to walk like their dads. Why? Because they've been observing how their dads do walk. We have girls who do or perform work just like their mothers. Why? Because you have learned that through what? Observation. It is the same way when it comes to design process. So when you identify a problem and then you are trying to gather information to solve it, one of the ways in which you can do that is through observation. Maybe you have observed other designers who have probably solved similar problem. And what have you observed from them? This is the moment where you try to recollect what you have observed so that you'll be able to also solve your problem. Or better still, you have gone to the site so that you could observe how they are able to make that particular artifact, so that you can also, through your own observation, be able to find solution to the problem. So apart from these two, the other method that you can also rely on is what we call literature research or reading. This is the method that involves the use of books, magazines, handouts, etc. to gather ideas relevant for the possible solution to the problem. So at this stage, one has to do a lot of reading. You could rely on books that you think contains the information that you are looking for. Or probably go online. You could Google and be able to read a lot of information that will be able to help you to find a solution to your problem. And the next method is what we call the questionnaire. This is a method when the researcher prepares a form in which questions are asked and columns provided for respondents' responses. So at this stage, all you do is to get a paper and then try to write down the questions that you would want to find the information from. And based on these questions, you then present them to so many people, so that through their responses, you could collate them and probably pick what the majority are talking about. And that is what we mean by a questionnaire. And then apart from that, the other method that we could look at is called visit. This is a method where the researcher visits places or sites to observe and ask relevant questions as a way of gathering information for a possible solution to the problem. So these are some of the methods. We still have a lot, but these are the main ones that you need to know when you want to gather information. And then after you have gone and you are getting all these informations, you will agree with me that if you do not have a way of restoring or recording them, you probably will go back to your house and find it difficult to recollect some of the answers that were given. So when it comes to taking information from people, there are ways in which you can record or gather these information that you are getting. And some of them are the ones that we have just listed below. You could do what we call the audio or video recording. You could also use sketches. You could use graphs, write-ups, pictures, and tables. So these are ways in which one will be able to collect the information or the data gathered from people. And that is what we need to know with regards to the investigation as a stage in the design process. The next stage that we'll be looking at is what we call the design specification. Specifications are statements which clearly indicate the requirement the designer has to satisfy in order to be successful. This stage is where the designer provides specific answers to the questions asked at the analysis stage. These specific answers are derived from the investigations carried out. So all that we are saying is that as a designer, all of the questions that have been asked under the analysis, this is the time where you try to provide specific answers to these questions. And you only get the specific answers after you have carried out the investigations. So through your investigations, you are able to get the right answers to the questions that were posed under the analysis. Let us look at some of the examples of specifications, but we are going to rely on the first situation that we gave you when we were looking at, when we were talking about the situation. We gave you three particular situations, and the first one had to do with Emmanuel who normally puts his bathing soap on the window frame when bathing. So we gave questions under analysis. We are going to go and try to provide answers to them so that you have an idea about how one is able to provide answers to the questions posed under analysis. Now under function. So if we ask the question under the function, like what would be the purpose of the unit, after your investigation, this probably will be your answer. The main use of the unit is to keep soap. So now you have been able to state categorically what you are going to use the unit to do. And the materials, these are some of the specifications. The unit should be made of plastic. So after your investigation, you have come across all sorts of materials, but what you have agreed upon to use in making the unit to keep the soap is plastic. That the material should be durable, to be a strong material. And yes, local materials can be used. Under construction, these are the specifications that you could get from the analysis or the questions asked under construction in the analysis stage. The unit should be constructed at the workshop. And no, in case if there was a question asked if there would be the need for special tools, the answer is no. The construction would not need any special tool. And then under ergonomics, which there were questions like what would be the age of the user. This is where you need to specify. So the age of the user should be 20 years. The height of the user should be 5 feet tall. And the weight of the user should be 60 kilograms. We also move on to economics. That has to do with money. So when you refer back to the questions asked, these are the specifications that are given. So the cost should be affordable, and the selling price should be acceptable. And then moving on to appearance or aesthetics, we're saying the color of the unit should be blue, and the geographical shape should be rectangular. Now, after the specification stage, where you have specified as to exactly what you need for the unit, we now move on to the next stage, which is possible solution. What is possible solution? This is the stage where the designer or researcher expresses his or her ideas by way of sketches as possible solutions to the problem. So at this stage, the designer presents different pictorial views of the unit to be made, accompanied by annotated notes. That is reasons for selecting or rejecting a particular view. So this is also a very critical stage. This is where you then start to express yourself by way of sketches, graphically. So at this stage, what we are saying is that you know what unit you are going to make, but you now have to come up with what? Some sketches. Maybe 3 different sketches, and then you will write what we call the annotated notes. We would be using what we have on the board to let you know exactly what we are talking about and the possible solution. All right. So these are some of the possible solutions that we have given in trying to solve the problem about Emmanuel, who usually puts his bathing soap on the window frame. So all these are possible solutions, but we would start to talk about them individually with the annotated notes so that they'll give you an idea as to why this is selected and why the others are not. And this is why we call it possible solutions. It could be any of them, but there should be a reason why you then have to pick or select one of them. All right, so this is the first possible solution that we are going to look at. When you observe this sketch, it has been sketched in the pictorial form. And this is what we call the annotated notes. The reason as to why you are either selecting or not selecting a particular sketch. And this is what we have here. So this unit is selected because the bottom is perforated, which makes it easier for droplets of water to drain off. Exactly. So when you look at the bottom of it, these are holes. And you are talking about soap that you want to keep. So that after you have used it, it has a lot of moisture on it. And when you put it there, the moisture or the droplets of water, you have created ways in which they will drain off, keeping your soap dry. So this is a very classic reason why a designer would go in for this kind of a unit. So in this case, we are selecting this. All right, so this is also one of the other possible solutions. But in this case, we are not selecting this. And the annotated notes will tell you why this one is not selected. So this unit is not chosen because it is made from wawa, that is wood, which may rot easily when it comes into contact with water. So specifically, when you use wood or like wawa, which is very soft in nature, to make that, guess what will happen as it comes into contact with the water? Definitely it will rot. So this is a very good reason why the designer will not go in for this, although it looks good and it's attractive and can also take care of the need of the problem, but it is not selected because of the material from which it is made from. All right, so this is the other possible solution. So as you look at the view, it looks very attractive, capable of also performing the purpose. But this is not going to be selected. Why? It is contained in the annotated notes. We are saying that this unit is not selected because it is difficult to be constructed. Its construction would require special skills and tools. Sure, under the analysis stage, a question was asked if there would be the need for special tools to be used. And after the investigation, we came with an answer at the specification stage that no, special tools will not be used. And then that alone should let you know that this is not selected. Maybe you have a workshop that is handicapped with some special tools, and you probably need a lot of training to get those special skills to make this kind of a unit, although it is attractive and good and can do the purpose, but it is not selected in this case because of the need for special tools and special skills for its construction. All right, so after the possible solution, we now move to the next stage, which is the development of the chosen solution. This is the stage where the designer carries out a detailed graphical views of the selected or chosen solution under the possible solution stage. At this stage, every part of the chosen solution is developed into further possible solutions accompanied by annotated notes. So basically what we are saying here is that when you get to the development of the chosen solution, you have to then try to develop the unit that you have selected. So to develop it is to split it into the various parts in which it is made of. And every part, you are going to take every part and also come out with possible sketches, probably like 2 sketches, and then you will select one, and then you would ignore the other, and then you move to another part and sketch 2, and then you select one and ignore. You do that for all the parts. And all those that you have selected are the ones that you are now going to put together to form what we call your final solution. So that will take us to the next stage, which is the final solution. This is the stage where the developed chosen solution, which satisfies the requirement of the design, is drawn in pictorial form. That is, it is drawn either in isometric or oblique or perspective form. So the final solution stage is very important. That is where you need to really make good use of your instruments so that you could draw the one that you have now developed, the various parts that have now given you the unit. You make sure you draw them nicely. And I'm sure once you have already done isometric drawing, you have an idea about what we are talking about here. And once you've also done orthographic, oblique drawing, and perspective, you understand what we are talking about here. This is where you apply your drawing into those forms, either one of them, and that would be what we call the final solution. The final solution doesn't mean that is the end of the design process. You haven't even made it yet. So after this, it will lead us to another stage, which is called the working drawing. This is the stage where the designer provides vital information that are needed to ensure that the final solution that has been arrived at can be translated into workable process using the required materials. So working drawing include the following. Let me tell you what is entailed or contained in the working drawing. At this stage, you are going to come up with a detailed drawing of your final solution. What do you mean by detailed drawing? Now you have gotten your final solution either in isometric, oblique, or perspective. Now you're going to ensure that you are taking every part off to develop it. to draw it. That is more detailed. And after you have gotten your detailed drawing, you can also go ahead to draw your final solution in orthographic. That is where the views are presented in the plane form. So you're looking at the front view, the end view, and then the plan. This is where you come out with all those drawings. And then you have what we call the exploded view. And the exploded view, you just have to maintain the same final solution, but you bring out the drawing in such a way that when you put them together or assemble them, you can easily get the unit. So at this time, you're going to explode the views, but in a way where anybody can easily see that assembling them will give you the unit that you got as your final solution. And then after that, you prepare what we call the cutting list or cost. Everything that you have obtained in the process of making this, you need to be able to cost it, and that is a stage for that, before you then move into what we call the operational sequence. That contains stages as to how you are going to make your unit. Are you going to, you have to measure the materials you have to go ahead to cut them, maybe plane them, and maybe you probably do cutting in such a way that you can easily come up with the construction. So operational sequence is very vital because that is where you would then be able to come out with your unit. So now you have made your unit. In our case, the situation we are using, you have made your soap dish, or you have made a unit that is required to keep the soap. So at this stage, what do you need to do? The final stage of the design process is now to subject this particular unit into testing and evaluation. So this is the final stage of the design process, whereby the designer subjects the unit made to testing and evaluation to determine if the unit has met the problem identified. So you have made it, but now you need to test it. The testing will tell you if indeed what you have made has met the reason why you have made it. This is all that you need to know about design process. Right from your situation to your brief, to the analysis, to the investigation, the possible solution, and then to the development of your chosen solution, to the final solution, you then go on to what we call testing and evaluation. Isn't it wonderful to really know all this process? Technically, this is what we present to you, but this cuts across everywhere. Anyone who comes across a problem will have to definitely look for ways in which they'll be able to find solutions to it. And this, technically, we have given you an idea as to how one will be able to find a solution to a problem. But hey, wait a minute. With the other day, we gave you assignment, and we have another assignment for you here to find out if truly you have understood what has been communicated to you today. And this is what we have for you to write. So just take your notebook and write it down, and then later on sit down and then ensure that you answer these questions. Question number 1, briefly explain the following. Brief. So we have looked at brief, explain what it is. Analysis, explain what it is. Investigation, explain what it is. Possible solution, explain what it is. Question number 2, state 4 sources of collecting information to solve a given problem. And the final question is list any 5 ways in which data collected can be recorded or stored. This is what we have for you. Do it, and then we will meet you next week, God willing. And we want you to keep staying at home to ensure that this deadly disease does not have any impact in you. We want to see you when finally school reopens. Thank you.